What's going on, guys? It's Cimo. So I wasn't expecting to upload another video today, but the OCG Forbidden and Limited list for January 2018 just got announced, and I wanted to share that with you and kind of discuss how this might possibly affect the TCG as well, because some of these changes are rather shattering, and it's a lot that I want to discuss just as a whole. So starting off with the Forbidden cards, there's only one card that they've hit in the Forbidden category, and that card is Ancient Fairy Dragon. Now, I don't think anyone would have ever predicted Ancient Fairy Dragon to get hit, because this card, I mean, it does facilitate a lot of really stupid shenanigans, because you're able to just like pop off with like all your different field spells, search more field spells, and really extend your combos in a way that you really shouldn't be able to otherwise. But I didn't think it was at the point where Ancient Fairy Dragon was warranted the ban, so that actually is incredibly surprising, at least from my point of view. We're going to discuss some of the other limits and semi-limits as well, because I think some of those play into this, but that's really interesting because that helped facilitate a lot of different plays with other decks outside of Spiral as well, although Spiral was obviously the biggest abuser of a card like Ancient Fairy Dragon. Now moving on to the limited cards. So for limited, we have Spiral Gear Drone, Spiral Quick Fix, Dandelion, Blackwing Steam the Cloak, Firewall Dragon, as well as Spiral Resort. So let's start with the big ones here. The big ones here are Spiral Gear Drone, Spiral Quick Fix, as well as Spiral Resort. So the OCG hits Spiral in a very significant way. Now, one interesting thing to note is that in the OCG, they've had Spiral still at full power, but Spiral was actually in a little bit of a decline. With the Link Vrains pack being released and with decks like Zefra actually going on the rise because they have Danglong still legal in Japan, that deck was actually capable of building a board that was able to negate two of your opponent's cards and was actually very formidable when going first. Now, obviously the OCG meta is completely different from ours, but as we've seen, just hitting Drone and Quick Fix is not enough to pretty much stop Spiral. But Spiral Resort getting hit kind of throws something else in there, because Spiral Resort is the main searcher for the deck, and the fact that there's 3 copies of it paired with 3 terraforming gives the deck a lot of consistency. Now, on top of the fact that this going to 1 means you only have 4 copies of Resort, but this also means something else that's very significant. This means that if you don't have, or excuse me, if you already have a copy of Spiral Resort on the field, your one lone copy, you actually can't perform your Master Plan combo, because when Master Plan's sent to the graveyard, you actually are forced to search 1 copy of Resort and 1 monster. It's either both or none. So the fact that now is if you use Resort to search your combo piece, you're not going to be able to get the sleeper off of the Master Plan effect, and you're not going to be able to continue comboing off like that. So it inadvertently, by hitting a card like Spiral Resort, it actually hits a card like Spiral Master Plan and kind of puts it in check at the same time, while also really putting a check on the deck's consistency, and that's a really big deal. Now, obviously there's ways to circumvent that, because if you just have your 2 Spiral monsters and you're proceeding to do the combo anyway, then it doesn't matter because you search your 1 copy of Resort off the Master Plan. This basically just means that you can't use Resort to get to your initial combo. It kind of has to be now a part of the combo itself rather than a starter card. So that's rather interesting from my perspective. Now, there are a couple other cards on here. Dandelion and Blackwing Steam the Cloak. Now, the reasons why these 2 cards are on here, I'm going to assume is Crystron Needle Fiber, because both of these cards are tuners, meaning they can be special summoned off of the effect of Needle Fiber, and basically there are tons of combos, if you guys have been watching anything on YouTube regarding Crystron Needle Fiber, that they're able to utilize cards like Dandelion and Steam the Cloak, as well as their token producing capabilities, to just further combo off into just massive degenerate Link plays. So while this may seem a bit aggressive, especially considering the Link Vrains pack hasn't really had a lot of time to like breathe some life into the OCG, this is an interesting hit from that perspective, because I think they kind of want to put a balance on Needle Fiber, because Needle Fiber is capable of producing a lot of bullshit, and I think this is a very good way and a very proactive way to kind of not let the card be abused as much as people might anticipate. The last one is Firewall Dragon, and I don't think a lot of people were ever anticipating that Firewall Dragon was going to make its way on on the limited list, at least for some time, considering the fact that it is like the protagonist of the Reigns anime's main boss monster. But Firewall Dragon going to 1, I think, is a very positive change, and the reason for that is because Firewall Dragon is very, very degenerate when used in multiples and enables so many ridiculous loops. I mean, we saw stuff with Grand Soil. That's why Grand Soil was errataed in the OCG now. There are so many different things that Firewall in multiples is capable of doing. The Infernity FDK, all these different FDKs, and really multiple Firewalls outside of a deck like Spiral really was just unhealthy in general. So having the 1 Firewall I think is good, because if you're able to co-link with Firewalls, it's still fine, and you're able to abuse the 1 effect of Firewall as much as you want, but you're not going to be able to combo multiple together to be able to just do some of the outrageous stuff that you were able to before. And the fact that still at 1 is fine, it's still a very good link 4. It just might not be, you know, your default option in most cases, especially if you're not going to be able to achieve multiples. But I think overall it's a very good hit, and I think mainly this list is actually kind of not only just checking the best deck in the format, but also putting a hedge against some of the degenerate combos that have spawned as a result of us entering Master Rule 4 and the era of links as a whole. So that's it for the limited cards. Moving on to semi-limited, there's a lot of them. So Tribe Infecting Virus, I don't think anyone gives a fuck. This card could go to 3 and it wouldn't make a difference. Grinder Golem going to 2 is very fascinating. Now, Grinder Golem's combos are absolutely degenerate, but putting Firewall in check kind of in a way makes it so that Grinder Golem isn't as big of a deal, because that combo did result in multiple Firewalls and a bunch of other shenanigans that they've checked on the limited list. So they hit it on the semi list. Personally, I feel like the card just has no place in the game whatsoever. I just think it just enables completely unhealthy synergies that shouldn't exist, and that wasn't really, you know, done by design. This is kind of just like collateral damage of the fact that, oh hey, here's a new mechanic, but we didn't realize that a card was meant to be used this way, and that's kind of what they're dealing with now. I think they should have just banned or limited Grinder Golem just flat out, kind of like what they did with Gofu, but it's semi-limited and Firewall's limited, so I don't think that's the end of the world, but I don't know. I still feel like the OCG is still going to be able to do stuff with it. Sure, its Strategist and Necroz going to 2 is very fascinating, because that means, you know, I don't know, man. There's like always that chance that Necroz could be doing something, so that's interesting. Mathematician going to 2, perfectly fine. I think that's good. Lone Fire going to 2, we have it at 3 in the TCG, so hey, more power to him. Scapegoat going to 2 is something interesting, because that's a card that Trickstar and a lot of actually other different decks have been using as well, just to really capitalize on the link mechanic. And again, Scapegoat's kind of like Grinder Golem in a way that it's a card that was designed before links existed and wasn't really meant to be used in this way. So I kind of feel like this is just another check on one of those cards. I don't really think Scapegoat is like the end of the world, but I mean, a 1-card link 4 that you have to wait a turn for, I mean, it's not the best, but it's not the worst either, so I don't know, that's an interesting hit. Pantheism going to 2, that's an interesting buff to Monarchs. Set Rotation going to 2, we have it at 1 here. Again, I feel like Set Rotation is a completely unhealthy card in general, just because of the fact that it locks out an entire mechanic, especially when so many decks are reliant on a field spell. So I feel that, you know, going to 2, honestly, they should have just put it to 1, just like here. Solemn Warning going to 2, though, that's also a really interesting one, because Solemn Warning's been at 1 for a very, very long time. So now you've got 2 warnings, 3 strikes. The OCG also has Judgment, which is insane. I mean, we're talking like new Solemn Brigade, like Master Rule 4.0 Solemn Brigade. That's pretty cool. But again, Solemn Warning is a card that you don't even see a lot of people play anymore. It might be mained or maybe played in the side deck for going first, but frankly, you don't even really see it played that much anymore. And then the Unlimiteds, we had Atlantean Dragoons, which 3 Dragoons is pretty nutty for Mermail, I'm not gonna lie, but again, I don't really think it's gonna have too much of an impact for Mermail, but that'd be cool to see. Max C going to 3, that's really interesting. I believe they had it at 2 before in the OCG, so now it's back to 3. Again, Max C is one of those cards that people are very divided on, so I don't know about that. Dark Hole is at 3, though. That's insane. I mean, here we just have Wargeki, a Dark Hole, and we have Kaiju Slumber, but now they have 3 Dark Holes. That's really nuts. And then Future Fusion going to 3, I think that's perfectly fine. I mean, there's Infernoid decks that don't even run Future Fusion, and that's the main deck that really gains a lot of benefit out of it. So, honestly, that's perfectly fine. But ultimately, is this going to solve a lot? And I really think it is, because when you look at the fact, if you've been paying attention to the OCG meta at all, the fact that these other decks have been on the rise as a result of the Link Vrains pack being released, and the fact that Spiral's already been on the downturn, the fact now that they've hit 3 of the core cards, especially Resort, which is a very, very big deal, I really think that we're going to start seeing the meta shift heavily. And obviously with Grinder Golem and Firewall and all these targets for Needle Fiber getting hit, Ancient Fairy getting banned also affects a lot of decks' consistencies as well, because now you're not doing combos like with Dragon Ravine just to get out your Ancient Fairy to blow up your field spell, to search your deck's actual field spell. It actually really does a lot and kind of hurts decks that rely on like the Destrudo engine. So I don't know, this is a really interesting list overall, and I'm really curious to see how some of these may translate to the TCG, because although we don't have the Link Vrains pack yet, there's still a lot here that we can take and kind of look into the future and see what we might need to kind of proactively hit here in the TCG before it gets here and we have to deal with some of the bullshit that they've had to be dealing with. But guys, those are just my thoughts. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think about this OCG ban list as a whole. Overall, I think it's pretty good, and I'm really curious to see how their new format is going to shape up, because it's going to be really exciting, might inject some new life into the game, and overall, I think that's pretty healthy. So guys, thank you so much for watching the video. Be sure to like the video as always, subscribe to the channel for more amazing Yu-Gi-Oh content, and if you found this video informative, consider backing me on Patreon, because just by pledging only $1 a month, you're investing in my ability to continue bringing you amazing Yu-Gi-Oh content. So thanks so much again, and we'll see you next time.